Hi, everybody. Welcome to this session of the Travel Unity Summit. I'm really excited for the folks we have today. I think we have a lot of different voices around this topic, and to be able to talk about disability and accessibility on really both fronts, I think is a very important topic, both on the visitor side, but also how do we get people with disabilities into the travel space. It's a big part of the work that Travel Unity does, and we very much appreciate the relationship we have with CSAVR and the state agencies that focus on vocational rehabilitation. As always, just want to start off thanking Roost, our hosting sponsor. We'll be out in Lake Placid next week for our in-person sessions. And yeah, I'm going to kick it over to Jason Thurston who's going to be running this session for us.
Okay, thanks, Ronnie. I am a quadriplegic and have been for 17 years since I broke my neck in my own swimming pool. Prior to that, I was a career chef, so I understand a lot about the hospitality industry and travel and stuff like that. Upon breaking my neck, I got involved with the Independent Living Center, so I learned a lot about disabilities. And I'm currently the outreach coordinator for a small campground in the Adirondack Mountains. And I also am the chairman of the Accessibility Advisory Committee to our local environmental conservation organization for New York State. So I think it's very important that accessibility is addressed. I also think that it's important that there be some kind of disability etiquette or explanation, just to understand a little bit about how to approach different people with different disabilities. And that would make them feel more comfortable. And if you're more comfortable with that, it's easier to handle. So I guess with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kelly from I Love New York.
Great. I'll just share my screen. All right. So thank you, both Jason and Ronnie, for inviting I Love New York to participate in this session. Today, what I'm going to be discussing is what I Love New York is doing to broaden its invitation to visit New York State, particularly to those with disabilities through our Accessibility New York program. So what's the program? It's been years in the making, going back to 2016. So we've been working on this for quite a while. And recognizing that anyone, regardless of their physical limitations, abilities, or age, should be able to enjoy New York State's attractions and events and everything we have to offer, the Division of Tourism was tasked with including expanded accessibility information on both our website and our app, as well as providing technical assistance and training to our industry partners and destinations. So prior to 2016, I Love New York, we did have some information on accessibility on our website. It was, a lot of times we put the little wheelchair icon in our listings for an attraction, but we found that that's pretty limited. Not only does it tell you like what exactly to expect, but sometimes it's not even accurate. And so we decided to change that and make it better. So we set out on this big task to improve the information we were providing with one main goal in mind, which is to increase the consideration and intent to travel to New York State among people with disabilities. And considering that approximately 67.5 million American adults have a disability, we knew that improving and increasing our accessibility information, we would attract a new market. In fact, you can see at the very bottom on the right, if you just look at New York's market, which is a 5-hour driving radius of the state of New York, it's a 6 billion market, just New York State, with a potential 3 million plus travelers. So to us, this indicated two things. One, it's a large untapped market, but much more importantly, it's a hugely underserved market that deserves equal access to everything that New York State has to offer. So we recognized that if we wanted to succeed our goal in getting people to come visit from this market, we needed to do several things. Since one of the biggest challenges we found is finding accurate and reliable information, we knew we would need to create a resource for travelers to plan accessible vacations. And if we were going to do that, we would have to establish a process for capturing this information from our attractions, which both of those would ultimately lead to a guide with information on accessibility at all, hopefully all of our attractions at one day. So to ensure we understood our audience before we started collecting information and creating a guide, we brought on Open Doors organization, who's a national leader and renowned in the accessible travel market, to help us understand what travelers with disabilities need. And Open Doors had done some leading market research on the subject, which they shared with us, and ultimately helped us shape our program. So after consulting with ODO, it became clear that the best way for us to create this guide that we wanted was to provide as much information about accessibility as possible on our attractions. It was in depth, it's accurate, which is perhaps the best thing that any attraction or destination can do, so that people planning their trip can be confident in what to expect. For example, one that ODO told us when I first started, not as an expert in accessibility, they said, you know, imagine that you're trying to book a hotel and you see online that they have accessible rooms. That's great. And you get to the hotel and there's a lip on the door and you're a wheelchair user and you can't even get in. You know, not only are you highly disappointed, you're planning this great vacation, but you know, that's not a great visitor experience. So you just need to provide as much information as possible so that people know that they can get into a place and stay in a room. So our task, is trying to get all of this information from our attractions. And with 14,000 plus attractions, it's not an easy task. So we decided the best way to do this would be to create a survey. And we put information, we collected it through an extensive questionnaire that considered 4 different disability needs: mobility, vision, hearing, and cognition. And the survey was designed to be customizable based on an attraction type. So if you were taking the survey, you're only getting questions that pertains to your facility. So like, for example, if you're an amusement park, you would be getting questions about rides. If you're a history museum, you'd be getting questions about, you know, the museum. So we tried to make it as customizable as possible so that it wasn't overly cumbersome. And we also included questions that didn't specifically deal with ADA requirements and measurements, because we know a lot of times that can get really confusing. So we tried to break it down. So for example, instead of just asking, is your bathroom accessible, and then listing, you know, all the measurements that were required, we tried to break it up into separate questions. So we would say, like, does the stall or bathroom have a grab bar? And we would include a picture so that it was very clear what you were answering. And then based on those sub questions, if you answered yes, it was kind of like a logic. If you answered yes, and all of those were part of an accessible bathroom, then you have an accessible bathroom, if that makes sense. And then we also included questions that didn't have to do with ADA requirements, but were helpful for consumer experiences. So for example, for cognition, if a place offers sensory days or sensory kits, for example. So it was a really exhaustive survey, as I said before, but it was the point. We wanted to get as much information as possible. And to start, we sent the survey to 250 attractions across the state that made up a mix of lodging, food and beverage, theme parks, museums, zoos. We tried to get a wide variety. And we received full or partial responses from 88%, which is great. I mean, like, that was a great response rate. 101 were fully completed and 121 were partially completed. And to check the accuracy of those, ODO and their team did some site visits, as well as called up people and did like spot checks to ensure accuracy. So this survey, of course, provided us with so much data, but we needed to figure out how to present that data in an Excel sheet in an easy, digestible way to consumers. So on July 2020, to commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Americans with Disabilities Act, we launched our Accessible New York Hub. And I'll just play you a little video. It's like a screen share, there's no sound, just so you can see what it is, and I'll kind of talk you through it. So you'll see here, we just have an intro. And then down here are all our listings of the initial attractions of those 250 that took the survey. So what we ended up doing is you click on their listing and you scroll down a little farther to this accessible amenities tab, which we'll click on in a second. And based on their survey, these are all of the accessible amenities that we included. Actually, this is not exhaustive, but this is what this survey their listings have. So you can see that it's much more than just a wheelchair icon. We're asking things about an accessible bathroom, about an accessible entrance, if there's a unisex bathroom, if there's assistive equipment available, you can see yes or no next to it. So, you know, to us, this is the easiest way to take all of that data that we had and putting it in an easily digestible way for consumers. So again, here are the listings. Right now we have more than 100 searchable listings that offer consumers the chance to explore accessibility features and sort attractions by category, location, or accessible amenity based on the following disability types: blind, low vision, cognitive, autism spectrum, deaf, hearing loss, and mobility wheelchair access. And like I said, they include things like accessible entrance, rooms, if there's a Braille menu available, if staff training is available. So it's pretty in-depth. We also have editorial content and blogs that focus on special programming that can't exactly be captured in the listings, but if, you know, an attraction really goes above and beyond, we highlight them in our editorial features. And this also includes firsthand accounts from some, what do you call them? Influencers. For example, Corey Lee, a travel blogger who offers his perspective as a wheelchair user. And since this original survey, we've actually improved upon it based on some feedback. And we've taken that survey, which we sent out via SurveyMonkey at first, and we've actually placed it right into the back end of our website. So our attractions and partners can access it via our extranet on their own time. We found that this, one, provides better access to everybody, and two, it allows us to seamlessly upload all of that raw data directly into a website's listing without having to take it from an Excel sheet and manually putting it in. And of course, this is an ongoing program. We're continually reaching out to our attractions and partners and encouraging them to take the survey so that we can continue to build on what we have and make it just a bigger and better program. So ODO, Open Doors Organization, has told us that this is one of the most comprehensive statewide accessibility guides in the country, which of course we're very proud of, but we want to make it even better. So if you're a New York State attraction listening, please take our survey. And you can contact me directly or one of these two emails here, which I manage the top one, so it's still me. If you have any questions, and with much appreciation, we thank you for inviting us to the session.
Muted, Jason. Jason, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Kelly. Next, we have Susan Eisman from Legoland New York Resort.
Great, thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm just trying to get my settings here. So good afternoon. By way of introduction, I am Susan Eisma. I'm the HR director here at Legoland New York. And I also have the fortunate benefit of overseeing Legoland parks globally. And so I'm going to touch on disability, diversity, equity, inclusion in a couple of different facets. I'm really going to start on the guest journey, and then I'm going to also talk about how we make it come to life through the employees that work with us and how we do exactly what Jason and Kelly also talked about making sure that we understand what all of this means so we can meet the guests and the employees where they need to be met, not where we think that they need to be met. For those of you that don't know, Legoland parks are not owned by Lego. We are actually owned by an organization called Merlin Entertainments, which is the second largest global entertainment, only second to Disney in the world, although we have more aquariums than Sea Life, in fact, where we run resort theme parks, we run Legoland parks, and we run Midway attractions. And so Legoland New York here just opened up in 2021 in lovely Goshen, New York, my hometown. And we brought to life a 120-acre theme park, the first theme park in the Northeast in over 50 years, and in a post-COVID environment. So it was certainly a unique opportunity for me to come be a part of. hopefully you will see my screen move here in a moment. I could get my mouse to where it needs to be. So I shared with you a little bit that we have a broad organization backing us up. And so, you know, you really have to, as you go into these conversations, really understanding the why behind we are doing it. So we certainly like to think we do this because we are a for-profit organizations, and we absolutely know that diverse, inclusive, and accessible organizations outperform peers on profitability. We absolutely know that when you bring together that are people of different backgrounds and of different environments, which we call our kaleidoscope, we know that you get to innovation and improved decision making. We absolutely put the guest at the heart of everything we do. So we certainly know that that is important to us, and there is an outcome in our performance through the guest lens and through our key performance measures. We absolutely believe that we are a global leader, and we need to think about that when we are doing this. We know that it absolutely drives employee motivation and satisfaction about being a force for good, both when they see their peers be included and belonging, and certainly when guests see that. And we also know that it absolutely helps us win the war on talent. We also knew that while those are a great set of whys we were doing it, we also needed to stick to really the driving principles that is our lens by which we make all decisions. We really need to make it very simple and clear, both for guests and employees. We need to keep it safe. Safety is at the heart of what we do. We absolutely need to maximize access. We want as many people as possible to be able to safely access our rides and attractions. And, you know, again, just saying that we're accessible isn't enough, and we really need to make sure that we are consistent. We also really had to define our terminology. So we talk about diversity as our mix of people. We talk about inclusion by how we make that mix work. And then belonging is that emotional connection of I can bring my authentic self to work, or as a guest, I can bring my authentic self to your business.
Then, sorry to interrupt. We still just see the first slide.
Oh, okay. Well, that's not good. Let's try this. Now, do you see a different slide?
No.
Okay. I love, you would think at this point in a post-pandemic world, we are better with technology, but sad to say we are not, or at least
Always learning, all of us all the time.
So I'm going to try and do this the old-fashioned way. So can you see my screen now?
Not yet. We can see it. Well, it's telling. Yes. We see the first slide. Now we see the second slide. We are good. Thank you, Susan.
Okay, well, I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way then. So again, those are the 6 pillars that I've already talked about, the driving principles. Defining terminology is where I was at, which was really around diversity being the mix, inclusion about how you make that work, and then belonging. I really like the pictorial on the bottom right, where we talk about equality is not necessarily equity. And I think they're both really important, obviously, but equity involves really making sure that your resources are distributed where they are needed, so you can provide everybody the right access. So as we took a look at disabilities as we were bringing Legoland New York here to life, we obviously know that disabilities are varied. And it's not as simple as everybody likes to maybe potentially think it is. So we really had to think about hearing, speech, visual, mobility, mental health, neurodiverse, musculoskeletal, long-term health conditions, and what could be temporary disabilities. And we recognize that most are really disabled. As a matter of fact, I am also disabled. And so, again, it's all about how people view me. So in fact, when we look at the outdated medical model of disability, it is really about, well, they can no longer do because they are versus they are able. And so, where I think vernacular used to be wheelchair bound versus I'm a wheelchair user. And that, again, it was really that individual's issue that they needed to solve for versus an organization doing what we think is really now the social model of disability. So it's been developed over the last 40 years, which you can see here. But again, how do we help solve for this versus, where we really used to put the onus on the organization or the individual. So a couple of things that we've been able to do here at Legoland. We have a welcoming disabled customers policy. We are an active member of Business Disability Forum. We have training resources. So again, guides. We have a disability competence module that was designed by external experts that both our guests and our employees can leverage to meet guests and employees in the moment. We do things around changing places. So, if you think of someone who may be an adult that needs an adult changing area, people plan their activities around how they can get to places that meet their needs. And when you can say to them, well, we have adult changing facilities, that now unlocks a family's opportunity to spend a day in a theme park versus a few short hours because they have to figure out where they're going to have the ability to have adult changing rooms. It is about how do you unlock someone's sensory challenges and needs by providing them stories up front so they know what to expect in a theme park and on a particular ride. So in fact, they can feel comfortable about what they're about to experience. It is about creating spaces where there is soft brick for them to play with. It is creating spaces where there are sensory blankets. And it's really, again, about meeting a family when they're spending a day, about meeting all of their needs, not just one or the other, and how you do that. And look, we are a brand new build. We had the luxury of bringing in experts. We had the luxury of, starting it from scratch. But what I do like to do when I do this presentation is also talk about what are the things existing businesses can do to meet guests where they need to be met. So I have a kind of a top 5 list that we've done over the course of time. So when we say as an existing business, we're accessible, when was the last time you looked at your facility if you don't have the luxury of putting in adult changing rooms because there's not a budget? When was the last time you walked around and said, well, is it really accessible, or are there things obstructing what should be accessible? And in this picture, it's the trash cans in front of the elevator buttons. This one is, again, just basic care and maintenance for your facilities of, to the point that Kelly made about, yes, I have an accessible guest room, but I've put a lip at the door, so I'm not really accessible. So how do you look at that? This one is obstructing the accessible route. We have had folks, again, it wouldn't make sense for me to get into a wheelchair and try and figure out if I am accessible to the needs of someone who is a wheelchair user. So, having someone come in and really make sure that your accessible routes are truly accessible. Again, I think sometimes we find this where, again, are you saying that you are important to me as a customer if I use grab bars as storage? So again, how do you meet the guest where they need to be met? And then, again, this is a very typical one that I see when I go out in restaurants. Certainly, again, accessible and well-intentioned, but they have put the trash can, again, where you could not easily open the door if you're a wheelchair user. So again, some things that I always like to say to existing businesses who don't have the luxury of being brand new construction: do you travel your business as a guest that might have different needs than the majority of your customers? And is it an authentic and welcoming and true to what you say you are to your guests? And the same really goes about your employees. And I know that we're going to talk about vocational next. We also did the same with our employee journey. And so we really made sure that we went out and talked to including communities to say, we have 1,000 jobs here at Legoland, New York. And we know that the statistic is, and it's probably unfortunately even higher, 65% of the including community workforce is unemployed. So great need for jobs, an outcome where they have a need based on, they're unemployed. And how do you match the right roles to that community? And it wasn't about like, well, let's just create busy work or let's just add in bodies because it's the right thing to do. It was about working with job coaches to say, here's the work we have. How do we help people learn the guest services skills that we need? And where do they fit best? And how do we match them to the work that we have? And we have been able to have 20% of our employee population come from including. And it wasn't just enough to say, well, here's the work that needs to get done and how do we train them to the work? It then was, well, what does our transportation look like at the bottom of the park to get employees up to the top of the park? And what is their journey? And what is their experience? And what does our website look to someone who might have visual disabilities, to say we can create and we do things in the right font size to make sure that things are working appropriately. So that's really where we looked at it also from an employee perspective. What I would say is that this is usually a very uncomfortable conversation for most. What I love about what Travel Unity does is that it is encouraging the conversation. And if no matter what point you're coming at this from, what I always like to leave people with is, what really can you do? So again, I think a lot of people are afraid of getting it wrong, so then they do nothing. So I think you really need to be curious and keep learning. You need to be consciously inclusive. Walk around your job site and walk around your location. Are you representative of your guest population? And make conscious decisions to say, I want to do things differently. Certainly from a talent perspective, again, including communities is a wonderful place to unlock tremendous talent who can be wildly successful in the hospitality environment. So really casting a larger net when looking at talent. Mentor and sponsor diverse talent. So our neurodiverse employees sit and do lessons or lunch and learns with our executives here on site, so we can better understand the challenges they face as an individual and what it means to them and how we can better meet them where they need to be met, and choose to challenge the status quo. And it's all in very small steps. And so I always end with this, which says, don't talk, do. If you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. And I think that really hopefully fosters people to think about this differently. So thanks for having me.
Muted, Jason.
Thanks, Kathy. Thanks, Susan. Next, we have Kathy from National Vocational Rehabilitation.
Thank you, Jason, and great comments, Kelly and Susan. I think that you hit on so many points that are part of our journey. I was excited to see, as part of National Disability Employment Awareness Month, October, President Biden put out an executive order that focused on DEI and A, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, recognizing that 1 out of 4 people in the country has a disability. And this is the one diversity group that any one of us can join at any time. So, that whole concept of planning for universal design and designing spaces that are accessible to everyone. My hat's off to both of you. Thank you for the work that you're doing. I have a brother in a wheelchair, and my husband is deaf. And I will say that the pandemic has been extremely challenging on many fronts. And I just want to share a personal note because I've been the live-in interpreter for 2 years now. And my husband wears a mask that says, "I'm deaf, I cannot read your lips." So one thing that we can all think about that would be good for all of us, because how many of us miss a smile, right? Communication is nonverbal. Clear face mask, an easy solution to opening up the communication for anyone that has a hearing loss. So anyway, I just had to make the comment because sometimes the simple things, as we've all learned, and Jason, I'm sure you've learned this, is that accommodations benefit all of us, right? So when I wear this clear mask in the grocery store, I can't tell you how many times people say, I really miss people's smiles. So there you go, the communication aspects. So as Jason said, I work with the Public Vocational Rehabilitation Program. We are 78 agencies across the United States. We're a program that has been in place since 1920, focused on initially individuals who were coming back from World War II with injuries and returning to work, as well as agricultural incidents that resulted in injuries and continuing to work. The recognition in this country that you can acquire a disability at any time, but that doesn't mean always that you can't do something. It just means you change the way you do it. That's the accommodation, right? And we all know in this field, when we've met one person with a disability, we've met one person with a disability. So it's looking at the unique needs of the individual, but also recognizing the talent and how that talent meets the employment needs of businesses and organizations that employ people. So what we did was we sat down, our program focuses on careers for individuals with disabilities. As I said, we have 78 agencies. We're in every state, the territories and District of Columbia. Our focus is careers for individuals and looking at their talents and their goals and working with our business customers to understand their needs and also supporting that conversation, which, all of you hit upon, is that disability is not a conversation that we've had in this country. And a lot of times we'll hear businesses say, we just don't know what we don't know and we're afraid to ask. There's the number one barrier. It's attitudinal. We have to start the dialogue and help people feel comfortable about asking. So again, thank you for all you do. When we sat down with our businesses and said, how do we do this better? Inger, my colleague here, and I often reference Stephen Covey's example, his quote that says, "Be the end in mind." So if you're career planning with an individual, how do you work with business to understand their needs? And believe me, in the pandemic, those needs have changed. And how do we stay current? The only way that we can stay current in supporting individuals in their careers is to have working relationships with business. So what we've done at the national level is we have a representative from each one of our 78 agencies that come together to hear from our business customers like Marriott. You're going to hear from Stephanie here shortly. But our goal is to understand the business and to be able to work across the footprint of that business and to understand if we have a model or a strategy that works in one location, how do we move that strategy across the company? So building with business and building with the community, how do we support that employment and independence? And again, just understanding the employment needs of the business. And one of the key things that they said to us is build the trust. This isn't just about a job. This is about understanding the culture of a company, helping them grow their DEI and A initiatives, and opening up that dialogue internally. So how do we build those plans with a company? How do we open up that opportunity for recruitment and hiring, but also advancement and retention. Because disability is a community that you can join at any time, we get a lot of requests for, life happens, right? Things change in the moment, right, Jason? So how do we keep people working? And we've already started to see that cutting edge of the COVID long haulers. And how do we bring people back to work and build in things like memory cues for the foggy brain syndrome that people are often reporting after having COVID. So again, building those strategies and helping people enter the marketplace and begin their careers, but also continue to grow and remain employed. We partner at the national level with our partners with the Veterans Administration. So they serve veterans who have acquired a disability during service. Our program serves veterans who have acquired their disability after service, but we work jointly with the understanding that when you're working with the business, bring the resources to the table. Our other partner, KNAR, you'll see the acronym there, is the network of 90 vocational rehab programs that are on or near Native American reservations and Alaskan villages. Again, understanding how culture impacts planning and careers for individuals in communities. So again, that intersectionality that we often talk about in DEI. And then we have a network of roughly 10,000 community partners. So if an individual has a need for a job coach or an interpreter or some type of support as they transition into the workplace or back to work, we have access to those resources. They're part of our vendor network. My partner here, Inger, is going to walk you through the next slide, which talks a little bit about the services that we can offer. So Inger, over to you.
Hi, thank you so much, Kathy. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today and learning about your companies and your initiatives and what you're doing. And to Kelly and I Love New York, that was fascinating to listen to. And Susan with Legoland, wow, that was great. I love the quote at the end, so I'll have to utilize that as well. As you can see from the slide here, oh, I'm sorry. My name is Inger Neal. I am with CSA VR at the NET, and I am their business relations consultant, and I sit in Georgia. So it is such an exciting time right now. But as you can see on the slide here, some of the services that we offer to the businesses that we partner with, and in working with the businesses and assisting them with building strategies as they're moving forward, it's so exciting to hear what we've already heard, and what you'll hear from Marriott will be even equally exciting. But as the NET, and with having the reach that we have, as Kathy has illustrated in the previous slide, these are some of the services that we offer to our business partners, and at no cost to our business partners. And that is something that we find is the greatest value, being able to open that dialogue and being able to talk to businesses and provide that assistance to them at no cost to them. And whether it's pre-employment, talking about internships and training and some of the things that are available now, but also one of the services that we offer to businesses is building strategies. Like Kathy said, sometimes changing that attitude and being able to create a safe place for businesses to come and ask questions. How do we do this? We would like to do this, but how do we do that? What does that look like? What are some of the things that we need to think about? Being there for them, being that resource to business is something that we also offer here at the NET with CSA VR. As the business accommodations, what is it that the business needs to know or want to know, need to ask? How do we make sure that we're meeting their unique needs? Just like the clients that we serve, the customers that we have, they have unique needs as well. And our businesses, we consider them a customer as well. We operate in a dual customer approach. So the business is very much our customer, and we're partnering with them. What are their unique needs, and how can we help them to meet those needs to get from point A to point B successfully? And so when here at CSA VR, the NET, And with all of the territories, when we're working with that business, and as Kathy stated, we're building a strategy. How do we help you take that across the nation with all of your industry and then all of your outreach initiatives that you're doing? How can we assist you with that? So having the uniqueness that we have of being in all of the states and the territories and having those extended networks, we feel like we can truly meet you where you are and truly assist you with making the impact that you want to make. And this is such an opportune time for us to be doing this. And we're very excited to be here and be talking to Travel Unity in this very important message. So back to you, Kathy.
Thank you, Inger. And Ronnie, if you could advance to the last slide, thank you for your support. Please feel free to reach out to Inger or I. As Inger said, she sits in Georgia and I sit outside of Seattle in Washington State. So I think, you know, it would be great if you have any questions. And there's a question in the chat box here. So before I shift over to Stephanie, do you have any tips for keeping clear masks from fogging up? Oh, yes. Okay. Here's the tip, Stephanie. You take a drop of Dawn dish soap and you rub it on the inside of the mask, and you just let it set until it dries, and then you wipe it off. It keeps your mask from fogging. So there you go. All right. Well, thank you. And again, thank you for having us here today. It's my honor to introduce you to one partner. What can you say about the Marriott, Stephanie? This is Stephanie Rothfuss, and she's been with the Marriott. She has 15 years of HR experience with Marriott International. She's the director of HR at the Marriott in the Marquis, Chicago. So it is connected to the Chicago Convention Center and has over 1,200 rooms. I just, yeah, it's a tremendous, huge facility. Marriott has been a longtime partner, and they've also been they've been great in supporting conferences. You know, when we reach out to a hotel or a venue and say, hey, you know, we're bringing 800 to more people to your facility. This is a company partner that says, okay, what can we do? How do we meet with your front desk people? How do we educate? How do we prep for that? What are the different needs? So I can't say enough about the Marriott. Just been a great partner. And Stephanie and her team joined us this last month to share an insight on Marriott with our entire team and to start that connection and that educational process. And I have heard great feedback, the responsiveness and the willingness to open that dialogue and to know, you know, we're all part of the solution here. So how do we do this together? So with that, Stephanie, I can't wait to come and visit Chicago again. And I'll turn it over to you.
We will always have a room for you, Kathy. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. Good afternoon. As she said, my name is Stephanie. It's wonderful to be with all of you today and really talking about one of my favorite topics and parts of our company culture. You know, as Kathy had said, I've been with the company for 15 years, and one of the most impactful reasons that I've stayed with our company for so long is our culture and our commitment to an inclusive environment where everybody belongs, both our employees and our guests. For our company's 94-year history, it's been around a long time, we have always operated with a foundational culture of putting people first at our core. And global diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility have always been an integral part of this from the beginning. We believe that embracing differences of people makes us a great place to work, a great place for people to conduct business, and a great place for people to stay. And that's at our over 7,500 hotels across the world and in the United States. So it's a lot of places that that culture is flowing through. While we are certainly ever evolving and growing our programs so that we can always continue to be better, I wanted to highlight some of the ways that we promote this a little bit with our guests with Kathy, thank you so much for touching on that with our meetings. That was wonderful. Our suppliers, as well as our employees, which of course is the one that's most near and dear to my heart, and we'll finish with that. But certainly when it comes to guests, our philosophy is that we need to have a commitment to welcoming all customers, and that includes engaging with diverse groups, creating inclusive experiences for them when they're staying at our properties, and supporting key diversity initiatives. A few highlights of this, we do have actually an award-winning marketing campaign that's called #LoveTravels that was rolled out for our entire company. And this is our support and celebration of people who are pursuing inclusion, equality, peace, and human rights. So it really helps us to bond with our customers over our shared values. Another thing that we're currently developing is an initiative that's called Room for All. And we are working with experts to explore concepts of some of our room designs so that we can dramatically improve the travel experience for our guests with disabilities. So a few things that we're looking at with that are improving our room layouts and doing things like implementing technology to control lighting or temperatures and so forth in our room. So that's a really exciting opportunity that will just make an even better guest experience. One of the other things that we have internally is we have a diverse supplier program within the company. And what this means is we really try to promote our partnerships with minority, woman, service veteran, disabled, LGBTQ+ owned businesses, because we feel that promotes economic opportunity for all, and it really makes us better as a result. So we actually currently conduct business with over 4,000 of these businesses annually. And in the past 10 years, we've spent over $6 billion with these businesses. So we're really proud of that. And then lastly, of course, associates. So our company, certainly, if you walk into any one of our hotels, you can see that we have one of the most diverse and inclusive workforces that you would see anywhere. And that's something that's really critical to us, critical to our success, and that we're really proud of. We value the differences of others as a strategic business priority. So that's something that's definitely very important to us. We actually, we have an award as well that we're really proud of. Diversity Inc. Put us on their list of Hall of Fame companies. And we are the first and only hospitality company that's actually achieved that award. So as we continue, to focus on valuing diversity and fostering an inclusive environment, some of the additional things that we do are making sure that our associates are empowered to champion diversity and drive inclusion. We have a lot of multicultural tools and resources that help managers further understand and build awareness around cultural differences. We have many training programs that we do on an annual basis to help promote an inclusive work environment for all, as well as for our guests. And then, of course, engaging with wonderful organizations, such as Kathy's organization, that support and provide opportunities to people with disabilities, and how we can work together so that we can best achieve, mutual goals. I mentioned our putting people first culture earlier. This is something you can definitely feel throughout the company, no matter the location of our 7,500 places and growing. And I think that emotional connection to taking care of each other and providing a positive workplace for everybody is really one reason why you'll see we have so many long tenured employees in the company. It is certainly not uncommon to walk into one of our hotels and you have employees that have worked with the company for 20, 25, 30 plus years. It's really quite common, which is amazing. I know for me, it's been an honor to be part of a company that truly, puts these focuses at the forefront of what we do. And so with that, I'd like to conclude my time with a video that we're really proud of, so you can actually hear directly from some of our associates who have had the opportunity to be really successful working with us. I'll turn that over. Thank you.
We have a tradition of valuing diversity. From our founding in 1927 to today, Marriott International's commitment to inclusion has been an important part of our success. Our people are our top priority. Our strength comes from you, the associates. That's why we embrace differences and offer opportunity to everyone. We want all of our associates to feel valued. We want to help you contribute your unique gifts and to help you achieve personal growth. Our commitment to individuals with disabilities and their hard work is brought to life daily at properties around the world.
Did you know 1 in 5 adults in the United States are living with a disability?
We feel that every single person that works for this company has a contribution to make. One of the best examples I can think of is my own brother, Stephen, who passed away last summer. He had a great job here at corporate headquarters and he came to work every day that he could. We as a family believe that it added many years to his life to be able to come here and make a meaningful contribution with meaningful work.
29% of disabilities are visible.
Being totally blind, I think more for me is an inconvenience than a disability. I like to be independent, I like to do things on my own and only ask for help when I really need the help. But outside of my visual disability, I'm like anybody else.
I'm very comfortable working here. I've been well trained. The hotel has a good training program.
71% of individuals with disabilities have a non-visible disability. Examples of non-visible disabilities include cancer, diabetes, post-traumatic stress disorder, learning disabilities, and ADHD.
With some of us who are disabled, they can't necessarily see how we're disabled. I use a different type of keyboard. The background colors of the keys are yellow. The printed letters are larger, they're black. Make it easier for me to see.
Being a diabetic for many years and having my own health issues with sight problems, kidneys. I had a kidney transplant 2 years ago. That all through that journey, the company has been right there with me step by step and done a lot to really encourage me, number one, be supportive in the day-to-day workplace.
I am hoping that I improve people's perception of disability from someone who can't do something to someone who is not only capable but does a better job than most.
Our speaking associates and hearing associates have that ability to converse with our guests, and Rosemary gets her comments from just her gestures and her genuine care.
In all 5 properties that I worked at, I found out that the culture that Marriott presents from orientation through, that we respect each other, that we treat each other with dignity.
If you are thinking about working for the company, you couldn't pick a better place to work.
Marriott encourages all associates to complete the voluntary self-identification of disability form. If your response is yes, you are not required to share specific information about your disability. If you believe you need an accommodation, contact your local HR professional.
Marriott International has a long-standing commitment to diversity and inclusion. This pledge includes embracing individuals with disabilities in our workforce. In order to attract and retain the very best talent, to continue our growth, and to maintain our competitive advantage, we must cultivate a work environment where all of our associates are valued. Our associates, you, bring a world of differences which allows us to be more understanding of each other and the guests we serve. Individuals with disabilities belong here at Marriott, and we will do everything we can to hire and support everyone.
This is Kathy again, and I do want to add a quick comment. The video and the message that you saw and heard there is really true. We recently had an individual who was hired in the call center in Texas and was experiencing some issues. He is blind and he uses assistive technology to interface with the computer system. And all we had to do was pick up the phone and call the HR manager. And we received an email from him. What was that, Edgar, like last week sometime? And the comment was, I love my job. They've helped me arrange transportation. I'm so excited because I've received positive feedback from the guests that I've helped serve. So again, that commitment to taking care of your staff and how they take care of your customers and reflecting all communities within your employee population is such a hallmark of this company. So I just wanted to share, that's not just a PR campaign. We see it work. We see it at work every day. So thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yes, thank you all so very much. The messages that you have and the work that you're doing is very inspiring, all of you. Yeah, it definitely is important to understand that everyone has value and everyone has something to offer. And it's also important to create a culture where in that system, it's understood among everyone that that everyone has something to offer, and that an accommodation doesn't mean that that you're less of anything. Anybody have any questions or comments?
Just quickly, on the Travel Unity side, we as an industry are there are plentiful issues around workforce, people leaving the workforce, et cetera. And so it's our hope as an organization that people start embracing and digging deeper into how to work with people with disabilities to bring them into the workforce. So if there's anybody who is thinking about how to work with new hires, attract new candidates, who has any questions about that, you're not going to find a better group of folks to ask about that. So I just wanted to give some space if anybody's struggling with workforce things and wants to tap into a group of folks who are qualified and want to be doing these jobs. Now's a good time to ask if there's anything that you need to know.
Yeah, I can add to that. Vocational rehab has been wonderful for me, and I've witnessed it even before my injury. I worked, I was a chef, and I hired people that had job coaches that came in and worked with them, and they were some of the best employees. They were happy to be there, and the work that they did was just as good as anyone else. And then on a personal level, I can remember it was January 1st. I came home from rehab November 23rd, and I met with a woman from the New York Voc Rehab, and I could hardly sit up. And I said to her, I want a job, get me a job. I wasn't able to hold a pen yet. I was still, very much in rehab recovery myself, but she was willing to do anything she could to make that happen, to try and find some way that I could communicate or contribute. And all through the past 17 years, anytime I've had to go to them, they have connections with other employment agencies that will not only offer the job coaching thing, but also, if they need to prep you for interviews or resumes or anything like that, they're just incredible.
Thank you, Jason. Any final thoughts as we wrap up this session? Well, all right.